forget to do this. Um, I am going to share the screen because I want to talk with you guys about concision, making your writing concise. I do think that this is a very useful value for students. Some of you might be a little bit scared to hear those words, make your writing more concise, because some students, their initial concern is they will not have enough to say. I've been teaching for 20 years. I think I have a pretty good idea of the kinds of things that worry students when it comes to writing. And I have learned some tips to help students. So I urge you to reach out to me if you have any questions. I have said this repeatedly to several students who are worried about not having enough material. Put an outline together and get in touch with me, because I will tell you where you need to expand or what you need to bulk up. And I can be pretty detailed. Okay. That said, making your writing concise is valuable because like circuitous, complicated writing can make your message confused, okay? And above all, your voice needs to be clear, right? In your writing, you need to try and make your voice clear. And by the way, for anybody who's, I realize I didn't really give a big speech about this on the first day of class, but writing is very important at MICA. You're going to take a lot of liberal arts classes. I believe now the requirement is 9, and then you're going to take, I believe, 5 art history classes. So you have a lot of writing ahead of you here. We take writing very seriously, and one of the reasons we take writing very seriously is because as part of your thesis project when you're a senior, that will involve a lot of writing as well. Okay, there is a self-assessment, a very in-depth self-assessment that your thesis advisor is going to take extremely seriously. So, but writing is very important for a variety of reasons. It helps you think more clearly, it helps you understand, and of course, it is another medium of explanation. You all are going to be involved in various different artistic media: graphic design, painting, printmaking, drawing, film, right? And whereby you would be conveying a message. Writing is another way of conveying a message. And by the way, writing is always going to accompany you throughout your life, your professional life, whatever job you have. That is the one medium that you're also always going to have to rely on, okay? Now, there's my little speech about the importance of concision, about writing, excuse me. Why is concise writing important? Because when you are concise, when you are economical with your writing, then you can be clear, okay? And let me show you, I'm going to switch now and show you, I have a little handout here that I think is very handy here and useful. And then I do have a worksheet that I want us all to work on I think I'm going to pair you up and have you work on some of these. So just to give you an example, and so I'm referencing here, the handout that I just put on your Canvas site. So, there's a couple of ways of making your writing more concise. 1, replace several vague words with more powerful and specific words. So here's an example. This is an example of a sentence that is too wordy. Do you guys see where I am here? The politician, this sentence here, the politician talked about several of the merits of after-school programs in his speech. How can you make this more direct? The politician touted after-school programs in his speech. Touted means he praised. You probably could also use the word praised. Here's another example of a wordy sentence. Susie believed but could not confirm that Billy had feelings of affection for her. How can you make this concise? Susie assumed that Billy adored her. Another thing you need to worry about with concision, or can think about, is interrogate every word in a sentence and make sure that it is useful. Make sure that it is integral to the sentence and it's not some kind of throwaway sentence. Because when you have throwaway words, that block up your sentence, that can again obstruct the meaning. Here's an example of a wordy sentence. The teacher demonstrated some of the various ways and methods for cutting words from my essay that I had written for class. Concise. The teacher demonstrated methods for cutting words from my essay. Okay. I'm not going to get into these two. They're a little bit long. Combined sentences. This is very useful at times, okay? Sometimes an entire sentence is unnecessary, and it's much more elegant when you can put them together. Wordy, Ludwig's castles are an astounding marriage of beauty and madness. By his death, he had commissioned 3 castles. Instead, you could simply say Ludwig's 3 castles, an astounding marriage of beauty and madness. Wordy, the supposed crash of a UFO in Roswell, New Mexico aroused interest in extraterrestrial life. This crash is rumored to have occurred in 1947. Concise, the supposed 1947 crash of a UFO in Roswell, New Mexico aroused interest in extraterrestrial life. So you can see what's going on here is that these, you can take 2 sentences and combine them very easily at times. Let me go back. And I'm going to pull up this worksheet here and we can go over some of these. I'm going to have you all do these on your own for a little bit, but I'm going to start down here and see what you all have to say about these. So I'm looking at A, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was a man who set a high standard for future leaders to meet. How would you make this more concise? Anybody have a suggestion? What words can you omit here?
Could you say, instead of like high standards for future leaders, could you say set a precedent for leaders to meet?
Good. I like it. There's a couple ways you could do this, right? That's a good idea. What else? It turns out there are a couple superfluous words in here. You know what I mean? Unnecessary. There are some unnecessary words in here. Suggestions?
The easiest word to take out is like the was a man.
You nailed
Like you
it.
could just say that Martin Luther King Jr. set a high standard. Even just taking that out makes it more concise.
And there's more. He set a high standard for future leaders to meet. What else could you omit? So if you have a pencil handy, well, you don't have a pencil handy because it's digital. Omit was a man. Just say Martin Luther King set a high standard for future leaders to meet. And there's more you can take out. What else?
There's some in the chat if you want me to read them out.
Oh, there's in the chat. I'm so sorry. Yes, please, because I can't see the chat. Oh, man.
Okay. Martin Luther King Jr. set a high precedent for leaders. Martin Luther King Jr. set a high standard for future leaders. And taking out to meet and taking out future.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, guys. I see it here. Sorry, I was. I'm going to pull up the chat so now I don't see it. So if you're able to pull it up on your screen, the sheet, would you please do that? You know what I mean? Pull up the sheet so you can see it. I'm not technologically advanced. Let's look at the next one here. Anika has been deeply in love with cooking since she was little and could first peek over the edge of a big kitchen tabletop. This one's a little bit trickier. There is some concision you could make, but I mean, that is necessary, but it's a little bit slight. Anybody see how you could economize this sentence? Anybody got any ideas? Good. Alina has a suggestion. You could say Anika has loved to cook since she was little. But if you wanted to try and keep the dramatic clause, the latter part, it's exactly what Ava said, right? So this is important for your narrative essays. Like if you want to include narrative details that are salient and you think set the scene, concision and setting the scene are not counterproductive. They're not against at odds. They go together. So let me read the sentence the way Ava is suggesting it here. Anika has been deeply in love with cooking since she could first peek over the edge of the big kitchen tabletop. Right? She has been deeply in love with cooking since she could first peek over the edge. And why? Because this notion, why could you admit that? Because the idea that you can peek over the edge, that already suggests that she was little. Okay? Take a look at the next one. In my opinion, Bloom's race for the governorship is a futile exercise. Mackenzie suggests omit in my opinion. Perhaps, good idea. What else, guys? Elva, what do you mean was futile? Then what do you have left?
Instead of writing
Oh.
Bloom's race for the governorship is a futile exercise, just write is futile.
Perfect.
Or was futile.
I like that too, is futile. Depending on the context, you don't necessarily need to take out in my opinion, right? Maybe you have already established that this is your opinion, in which case, yes, you don't need to say that. But one way you could immediately make this more concise is just the end there, make it is futile. His race for the governorship is futile. Look at the next one. It is pretty important in being a successful graphic designer to have technical knowledge and at one and the same moment, an eye for color and balance. All right, I'm going to give you a minute to think on that one. Operate.
You can just take out it's and pretty important. You could just say to be a successful graphic designer, you must have technical knowledge and an eye for color and balance.
That was really good, James.
Thank you.
I'll repeat what he said. To be a successful graphic designer, it's important to have, I don't know what you said there, have technical knowledge and an eye for color and balance. Yeah. And Alina says, it's important for a graphic designer to have both technical knowledge and eye for color and balance. Yep. Good. And let's do E, and then we can do some exercise on our own. Your task will be the deliverance of correspondence to all employees in the company.
Get rid of in the company.
Yep, nice. Because they're employees, that already presupposes in the company. Excellent. I think you can make at least one other. You are a courier for the company. Wow, Elva is really going. It's true. I mean, it's good. I like that, right? You know, sometimes writers have a tendency to try and be like overly, you know, I don't know, eloquent. And that's really, some of my favorite writers are not, you know, overly complex. Deliverance is super wordy. Ava, you're right. What could you do?
I would just specify the means of communication, like if it's an email or a letter.
You could also take out the deliverance and say to deliver correspondence, right? But you're right. You're even more economical than I was thinking. Okay. Hey, everybody. All right. This is what we're going to do now. I'm going to break you up. I think I'm going to break you up into pairs. Okay. I hope everybody's out there. Hello in digital land. I'm going to break you up. Anne, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
And Nyana and Ash, are you guys there?
Yep.
How about you, Theo?
Yeah, I'm here.
10 minutes. Flip the page. Go to the section that starts with, here, let me show you where it is. I'm going to go to the share screen here. I want you all to take 10 minutes and work on the ones at the top here. You see the top? Starting, it was William Harvey, okay? I'm going to pair you up for 10 minutos, okay? And then come back and we'll talk about them. Oh, wait. What am I doing? No, sorry, guys. How many are we? We are 16, right?
Do we need to like write it down?
I think it probably helps.
Okay.
Wait a minute. How do I do this? Breakout rooms. All right. I'm going to send you off. Wait a minute. How do I do this? What am I doing? I'm trying to get you into rooms. Duncan, you okay? Okay.
Mhm.
For number 2, I just wrote Canada is the second largest country in the world. I think you can kind of.
Yeah,
It's important.
How you guys doing?
We're doing all right.
Don't worry, you won't get through many. Okay, I like your hat, but you won't go. You won't get through many. Just do as many as you can.
All right.
Yeah, no. I wrote like, yeah, that was pretty much the same for me.
Hey, you guys okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Bookshelf. Oh, hi, Furman.
Hey, you okay?
Yeah, we're doing the ones after the A, B, C, D, E, right? Or
Starting with, it was William Harvey. Or you could do the ones you're talking about, Rachel. That's fine. I just want you to do several on your own.
okay. Wait, do we do this as a group or individually?
Well, I want you guys to bounce ideas off each other. That's the idea.
Cool.
See you soon.
Great American writer Anne Bradstreet was great person, more or less. I don't know. It's just very all over the place. God, there's so much commas. Yeah.
Writer Anne Bradstreet was a great person.
Good job, guys. See you soon.
See ya.
that came up as an option.
Hey, everybody. Let's break out. Cray. So we're back. Looks like I'm missing someone. Who am I missing? All right. Why don't we go through a couple of these? It was William Harvey. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say, basically. It was William Harvey who, let me get my chat up. It was William Harvey who first wrote about the circulation of the blood. Who can nail that one for us?
William Harvey wrote about blood circulation first.
How about first wrote? William Harvey first wrote. Was the first, okay. There's some dead wood in there. There's some, the word, sorry, dead wood. There is dead wood in that sentence. Boom, get it out of there. 2, in terms of the size of its land, sorry, it's a mistake. Canada is the second largest country in the world.
Geographically, Canada is the second largest country in the world.
Okay. Anybody else?
We're just saying that Canada is the second largest city in the world without the interim.
Yeah, I think you could take that out altogether.
Yeah.
Because you said second largest, right?
Yeah, that's already implied.
You don't have to qualify what you're referring to. 3, to be sure, Anne Bradstreet was, as it were, a great American writer, and she was, to all intents and purposes, a great person, more or less. Wow, there's a lot of bullshit there.
And Bradstreet was a great American writer.
Okay. Anybody else?
And is a great person.
Sure. A great person seems to be different from a great writer. So if the author wants to add it, okay, but you don't need all this other clauses and commas and blah, blah. Get to the point. 4, Simon Bolivar is considered by many people to be a hero because of his work in helping defeat, through armed conflict, the Spanish armies in South America. What you got? Anybody?
Simon Bolivar is considered a hero because he helped defeat the Spanish armies in South America.
Yeah. Did you say Simon Bolivar is considered a hero? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you need to say by many people. That's implied. Through armed conflict, well, he defeated armies. That's the only way you defeat an army. So I think that's implied. Anybody else? Five, as anyone can see, most Americans have been affected by television in such a way that their appreciation of live theater has obviously become less and less. All right. You got that one, Mackenzie?
I said Americans' appreciation for live theater has been decreased due to television.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Anybody else?
I said,
I was going to say television has affected many people's appreciation for live theater.
Okay. Well, affected, I think, is a problem word there, James. You did everything right, but I think affected, you would have to change it, has harmed or undermined or diminished. Then you're right there. Who else was going to share something.
Oh, it was gonna be me, but we were in the same group, so.
You got it. How about 6? It has been shown that the length of the common cold can be reduced by giving the person with the cold doses of zinc glutamate in the form of lozenges. There's some fairly easy dead wood there. By the way, I think Trump took zinc. Sorry, who's got one?
I have one. The use of lozenges has been shown to reduce the length of the common cold.
I think you'd have to specify which kind, right? Zinc glutamate lozenges. Because that's not implied. But the rest.
Zinc glutamate lozenges can help reduce the length of the common cold.
Say that again?
Zinc gluconate lozenges can help reduce the length of the common cold.
I like it. Let's do one more. 7. In the times in which we live, people just can hardly be independent any longer. Look what is happening to them in the field of education. They cannot think for themselves. This is also true in other areas of life.
I said, people who cannot think for themselves struggle to be independent.
Nice. Wow. Anybody else? That was a marvel of concision, Kendall. Good job. Hey, Rachel, did you guys do the other side, the other page?
What do you mean by other page?
Did you do these same examples?
No, we did the ones underneath the ABC.
Yeah, let me look at those for a second. If you guys go to the other, go down to where we were previously. I'm pulling this up, see? I want to go over 2 or 3 of these here so we give this group a chance. This is the page that had Martin Luther King at the top. So I'm looking now at number 1. Seeing the barrels, the driver immediately slammed on his brakes. What'd you guys get for that, Rachel? Or anybody in your group?
Seeing the barrels, the driver slammed on his brakes.
Okay.
Seeing the barrels, the driver slammed the brakes. Since it's implied they did it immediately and the brakes are his.
Good.
I had the driver braked upon seeing the barrels.
Yeah, I think you could even do that. Braked. We don't use that word very often. Sounds weird, but he braked. There's your weird English word of the day. 2, a really well-stocked bookshelf should have classical literature on it, as well as important modern works of the current day.
A well-stocked bookshelf should have classical and modern literature.
Perfect. I love it. And let's do one more here. China's enormously huge work population has an effect on the global world of high-tech manufacturing of things. Whew. Disaster.
I think it was China's huge work population has affected the world of high-tech manufacturing.
I love it. We certainly don't need global world or manufacturing of things, because that's what manufacturing makes, things. Anything else? No? Okay, good. Cool. Well, again, I think this is a very important exercise, and you need to get into the rhythm of paying attention to when your sentences can be more concise. And if, I'm always happy to help out. So, and by the way, this is one of my hangups. I don't know if you guys know the kind of, sorry, Rachel?
Did you mean like anything else like the rest of the questions?
No, just that one there. If you guys had another option for that one.
We did 4 and 5.
Well, it's okay. I'm going to stop there because we're almost up at 2 o'clock. I want to get into other things. What I was going to say is, I don't know if you guys know about any of the writing that I do, but I write editorials for newspapers, and those are often 800 words. So it's really 800 words is not much. It's really hard. So it's really, really important to try and tighten and tighten and tighten what you say. And so I am on the lookout for that. When I read your papers and grade them, I will be going through and pointing out areas where you can economize. Because again, it's about eloquence, it shows organization, and it shows clarity. It's a very important talent. Okay. Let's switch things up now and talk about Wilson, Edward Wilson. Today, I had you read about a couple things that are important and that are going to kind of set us up for our discussion of Emma Marris, which is Emma Marris offers a different approach and a different approach to conservation, and even a different philosophy in conservation that I think is very important. You know, this is all hugely important stuff, you know, especially for your generation faced with the consequences of climate change. And as climate change advances, it accelerates the rate of extinction, which is very troubling. And his point is that one of his main arguments is that, you know, you might think that some species are expendable, or maybe not expendable is a word, or you might think that, and some conservationists think this, he calls these neo-conservationists. He's very upset about them. And last week we saw, he also calls them Anthropocene enthusiasts. Put that in the chat. Just that word, Anthropocene enthusiasts, people who are basically embracing the fact that humans dominate life on Earth and that our impact is felt everywhere, and that there are no more spaces that are purely wild or pristine. And he argues that, you know, every single species plays a role, okay? And the problem is scientists don't yet know what all those roles are, right? There's a lot more studying that has to be done. By the way, in terms of threats to biodiversity, the acronym he uses last week is called HIPPO, all right? I forget where that is in here. I know that the H stands for habitat reduction. I stands for invasive species, right? These are all the things that are undermining biodiversity and that are threatening different species. One of the P stands for pollution. I know the O stands for overharvesting or overfishing. I forget what the other one stands for, so if anybody wants to tell me, that'd be awesome. But the point is that the health of species is being attacked in a lot of different angles, right? And this is a job that is not only up to scientists, right? In fact, the problem is that scientists are not having much success. We discussed this last week, right? We discussed the state of climate change denial. The scientists are like voices crying out in the wind, you know, in the desert, that biblical metaphor. Who is hearing them? Who is listening to them? Half the American population doesn't even believe this happens. Who can change this? You know, the narrative here. There are a lot of people who argue that artists will play a very important role in changing this narrative. Because, you know, as artists, you all will be responsible for our visual culture. And visual culture influences people in a very different way than news culture. Plato believed, and the ancient Greek philosopher Plato believed, it was far more, that the arts were far more successful in influencing people. And this overlaps neatly with him because he suggests that, you know, appreciating the diversity of life is a matter of seeing, right? It has to do with seeing. We have to see the world differently. He has a beautiful quote here on page 87 I'll call your attention to, which describes just how he sees the world. He says, this is the very bottom of 87, he says, consider in the same light the different kinds of flies alone that you would capture in a field on a summer day by simply sweeping a butterfly net back and forth through the vegetation. Then ponder further, if you will, that the species are variously specialized to feed on particular kinds of fruit or pollen or fungi or scat or dead bodies, or if you let them, your own fresh blood. That's gross. Some flies are parasites on other insects, and not just any insects, but 1 to several species on which they are specialized, one of thousands available. When as a teenager, I had this epiphany and I almost became a dipterist, entomologist who studied flies. I was mesmerized by delicate little flies in the family, I'm not even gonna try it, glistening all over metallic blues, greens, as they displayed themselves on plant leaves in the summer sunshine. How many species were there? Why were they dancing with the maximum effect we seemed to me? Where and how did they spend their lives? Then I was distracted by ants. This guy, he really likes studying these little things, you know, but he makes the point that for most people, these are just bugs, right? They're just bugs. In the summer, we like to eat outside, and then my teenager gets all annoyed at the bugs. Like, this is according to Wilson, they're not bugs. They're not bugs, right? They are gnats, and they're flies, and they're mosquitoes, and they're wasps, and they're, right? Appreciate the diversity of them. Can you? I don't know. My son has a hard time, right? As visual artists, you have a power. You have a power to display that beauty, right? Or if you ever seen like close-up pictures of, some photographers have taken close-up pictures of the intricate designs of like dragonflies. It's astounding, right? And this is what people don't tend to see, or they don't care to see, or they don't know to see, or they don't take the time to see, right? Okay, Felix, what are Saturnidae?
Saturnidae is a family of moths. They're like known as like the big moths that are, there's the big ones. Like the kind of moths that fall under that are like Luna moths, Atlas moths, gypsy moths, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
I really like moths.
So love them.
Yeah, I love me some moths, and I also know way too much about millipedes. Couldn't tell you why. I just know too much about them.
Dude, I saw a millipede in Virginia this summer. I did not know they were around. I thought that was like a tropical thing.
Yeah, they're around. Yeah.
That must be, it was in the Appalachians, so that must be an Appalachian thing because we do not get millipedes over here.
Yeah, we get.
Really? I saw some millipedes in my old like city.
Where was that?
Small ones in like Ellicott.
Really?
Yeah, like small ones, small ones.
Okay, that's. Oh yeah, no, I saw a big mama jama. This thing was like 6 inches.
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
I once held a millipede that was like this long. Like it was like longer than the length of my hand. He was a big boy.
I think some people might be grossed out about that, huh? Anybody?
Oh, well, sucks to be them because they don't appreciate how friggin' cool millipedes are.
I think I've seen some large millipedes. I've also seen like one large centipede in the middle of Ellicott City for some reason. It was like yellowish, and I don't know if it's native or not.
Yeah.
Well, I
People
mean,
are
that's
weirded out by
part of the
bugs.
point. I'm sorry, go ahead.
People are weirded out by bugs because of the amount of legs that they have, but it's like, isn't it cool that they have more legs than we do? Like, millipedes have so many legs, and when they move, it's like a little like wave of little legs. Like it looks really cool when they walk.
Everybody's doing the millipede right now. Felix, you inspire them.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What's going on here? Are you all insect lovers? I am shocked. Usually people are like, gross. I'm telling you.
I compost and like the bugs are actually really good for it. So every time like I scoop up some compost and a bunch of really bugs run out, I get really happy. My favorite ones are like the roly polies when they
Yeah.
roll up. And I also really like the worms. I like to hold like a bunch of worms in my hand after I sift the compost.
Oh, I love worms. I love little earthworms. I used to pick them up from like sidewalks after it rains and like tosses them in some yard.
You all are such good people. Elva, you know what I like to do with my compost in the summer? This is a conversation I haven't had with anybody. I like to, because in the summer, they're really busy, right? It's like full of bugs and they're just munching away. You can open the lid and hear them chewing away. It is kind of insane. And then I give my chickens a shovelful and they love me forever.
They're hungry.
They love them. Well, I'm glad you guys like bugs. And I'm going to remind you again, if you want to go to Baltimore, you got to go to the Smithsonian Insect Zoo, one of my favorite places. I have an ambiguous relationship with bugs. Like, I don't know. Lately we have an infestation of these hairy grasshoppers in my basement, and I am not digging that. They're like hairy crickets. It's like, and when I see these giant hissing cockroaches, I'm like, oh. I spent a summer in New York one year, and I had cockroaches in my bathroom. Wasn't digging that. But his point is, bugs is where it's at, right? Bugs is where it's at, and that's where we haven't studied at all, right? We have paid attention to and grossly detailed the behavior of the pandas and the lions and the elephants. But the bugs, there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of those species that we haven't paid attention to because either people don't like them, there's a general bias against them, or, people think they're gross, they just ignore them, right? Bugs are not appreciated at all. We have kind of touched on this issue, but one of the unfortunate facts of conservation is that the attention tends to drift towards the big and cuddly. You know what I mean? Like pandas. But you know who's not getting a lot of love? The pangolin. You guys heard of the pangolin? I actually think the pangolin is kind of cute.
They're so cute.
They're like a miniature armadillo, but they have
little
scales.
snouts.
They
look very polite. They always have like their claws like tucked in towards each other. They're very polite.
Polite is in the eye of the beholder, Felix. You're a good man that you think that, but a lot of people couldn't be bothered, right? People love the panda. They love the fuzzy, right?
Which is part of the reason why I don't understand why people don't appreciate like a lot of bugs, because a lot of bugs are fuzzy. Like there are tons of bugs that are super fuzzy.
What do you think, people? You digging the fuzzy bugs?
I'm a fan of fuzzy bugs.
Well, you're already down with Wilson in that case. Let me call your attention to a quote here on page 111 that kind of touches on this point. He says at the bottom of the page, says, to those who think nature consists primarily of plants and large vertebrate animals, I say, look about you at the little things that run the earth. Not that run on the earth. No, the little things that actually run the earth. To those who believe they can fathom the working of ecosystems with mathematical models of a handful of species, I say you live in a dream world. And to those who believe that a damaged ecosystem will heal itself or can be safely restored by replacing original native species with functional alien equivalents, I say think again before you cause damage, right? So one of the conservation efforts, which we're going to discuss more with Emma Maris, is this idea that if certain species grow extinct, then you can provide or supply a functional equivalent, right? And he's against that idea, right? His argument is rather that, an ecosystem is a web where things intricately hang together, and we don't fully understand it, right? And if you remove one cog, you do not know how the whole thing will be affected. And he has plenty of examples of how it is affected, how it is harmed when you remove these single cogs. An ecosystem, another way to put it, is composed of species that are specially designed according to a given ecosystem, right? And, when they're implanted or introduced, they may, if they're an alien species that are introduced, they may not fit. That ecosystem will not function the way it is. So another way he puts it is that many conservationists are focused on ecosystems, and he instead is focused on species, okay? To say that conservation is focused on ecosystem is to say we're looking at the whole system, and if certain species are extinct, we will provide functional equivalents. And he argues, no, instead we need to focus on species, on individual species. Because again, we don't know how those species fit in. And another way of putting it is that the integrity of the ecosystem depends on various species and how they fit into that network, okay? And you can't just plug and play. It's not like that, right? And so, you know, that's where he thinks the focus is. But unfortunately, there just has not been nearly enough study of these. He describes in the first chapter we read for today, this place called the Great Smoky Mountains, which is a really beautiful place down in, I believe it's in Tennessee. If you take the 95, keep on going down through the mountains. And he says that's one of the most studied ecosystems on the entire planet. You know, it sits right on a major highway in America. The universities go there all the time, researchers study, and yet they have only studied something like a quarter of the known species. They've only documented a quarter of the known species in that best known park, right? But he points out it would take a lot of research. There's still a lot of research that would have to be done, okay? Another issue I want to discuss with you all, and this is in preparation for next week, is this idea of the baseline. This has to do with chapter, I think it was chapter 12, where he takes up some examples of wildlife restoration. He talks about two in particular. He talks about this project in Florida where a guy was spearheading the restoration of that landscape to its pre-human state. Okay, you know, and it was focused on reintroducing a certain pine called the longleaf pine and ensuring its dominance all the way from like the Florida Panhandle all the way to Mississippi. And that's what, you know, because that's what that would have looked like back in the day. The other example he gives is I don't know how to spell this, Gorongosa National Park, I believe. Gorongosa National Park in Mozambique. There is I'm going to provide you the link here. This is the link to Gorongosa National Park. It's a really interesting story. There is a documentary on PBS I was praising last week called The Age of Nature, really hopeful documentary about, you know, various efforts of restoration. And one of the things featured in that documentary was Gorongosa National Park. Gorongosa National Park is in Mozambique, which is a country at the very bottom, southeast of Africa. And Gorongosa traditionally has been a hotbed of biodiversity, especially in terms of megafauna. They had a very bloody civil war for about 20 years, during which just about all the megafauna was killed. Very, very tragic. And, you know, a certain guy, a very wealthy person, saw fit to reintroduce species. But he found the same species. He got the same species that were there before. He found them and reintroduced them. And crucially, he again created the situation where you know, they could thrive again and the population could grow back. And what was interesting with this documentary is that they have done a great job, actually. The species have really come back. Nature has amazing resilience. Which brings us to this topic of the baseline. What does the baseline mean in conservation circles? Anybody remember? There's a quote on 181. He says, biodiversity restoration relies on determining its baseline. If you're going to be involved in wildlife restoration, you must determine its baseline. What does that mean?
Like its natural state or like its normal healthy state of functioning.
Okay. Close. What was this guy in Florida trying to do? Or what did he believe he was doing? Because it turns out there's a big scientific controversy about what he was doing. No? Let me see if I can find where this is. What chapter is that? Is that 18? Oh yeah, it's 18. Well, I don't see a neat sentence about it. But this is on page 176, 177. He talks about this example in Florida. You know, he says at the very bottom, 178, he says, in the course of restoring to life a part of northern Florida's original habitat. Restoring Florida's original habitat. Look at that phrase. What is potentially problematic or controversial there? Florida. Yes. Other than the obvious, though, Naima. Nice one. Fist bump. That was a good one. Republicans. Yes. Okay. I know. Okay, people. I hear you. Eyes on me. Concentrate. Restoring Florida's original habitat. That's what this guy thought he was doing. Questions? What's the question that follows? How did he know what is original? Thank you, Duncan. Can someone explain? That's exactly the problem. You nailed it, Duncan. Can somebody explain or elaborate?
Well, the problem of what is original is that like you can't exactly pin down the exact landscape of an area before human intervention, because like that's kind of the point. It was pre-human intervention. No one would really know what was there, and because species naturally evolve over time, so there could be like a point in their evolution where could be considered original, but then they evolved further. So like, do we force them to de-evolve back? Like, what's going to happen with that?
Excellent. Anybody else? Look what he says in the middle of page 182. That middle paragraph, he says, the species composition immediately prior to the first major shift that can be ascribed to human activity on the basis of fossil and present-day evidence is the baseline, tested and preferred by scientists, right? So again, the species composition immediately prior to the first major shift that can be ascribed to human activity. There's a lot of vagueness here, right? What constitutes a major shift? When is the shift a major shift, right? How do you know precisely that this shift can be ascribed to human activity at all? What do you mean immediately prior? Especially when we take into account that ecosystems are always changing, right? Humans have often misunderstood, by the way, everybody, what that original state is. A lot of conservationists, for example, think that that original state is the state, like in America, a lot of conservationists think that that baseline is the state of the country, of nature, when Europeans first arrived and what they saw. Slowly, biologists are understanding that Native Americans, they fucking lived here. And guess what that means? They interact with the environment, okay? So we have to understand that they left an imprint as well, right? So we can't take for granted that what the Europeans first saw was the baseline. There was a baseline before that, right? As he points out in his reading last week, a lot of the Europeans, when they arrived in Hawaii, they thought that that was the baseline. That was not the baseline. The baseline was before the Polynesians even arrived. How are we going to find this out? Well, he tells us at the top of the next page, 183. From a scientist's point of view, the problem of establishing a baseline is not an argument against restoration, but a series of fascinating challenges deserving combined research in biodiversity, paleontology, and ecology. Paleontology, you guys know what paleontology is?
Study of bones and old stuff.
There you go, dinosaurs. So we need the paleontologist to get in there and like say, oh, aha, here's the baseline. There were no cats in Antarctica, right? There were no moths in North America. It was all slugs from coast to coast, right? I don't know. I'm not a biologist. But this is going to be a major bone of contention because Emma Maris is going to ask a couple questions. All right, Elva. You know there is a school in California and their mascot is the slug. I think it's UC Santa Cruz. I've been trying to get one of their hats for a while. Anyway, what was I saying? You guys are very weird, for sure. Slugs are cool. I feed them to my chickens. Emma Maris is going to tell us that the baseline is impossible to achieve, and it's not necessarily desirable, and it's not even possible in some cases. So there is a big difference in among conservationists about how to achieve that. Now he's optimistic. He thinks we can achieve this baseline. He thinks it's worthwhile. Okay. I'm going to put that on the back burner because we only have about 5 minutes. I want to take up one other issue that comes towards the end. So, I mean, look, around page, 190. So I think that's either this chapter or the next one. It's the next one. He makes his claim, his plan is half Earth. We have to save half the planet for wildlands. Okay. What are some likely criticisms he anticipates he will receive? Half the Earth. Are we going to be able to save half the Earth? Why not, perhaps? And by the way, by save, I mean leave alone, right? That's his point. We need to cordon off half the Earth and leave it the fuck alone. What are some potential problems with that he entertains? Capitalism.
Yeah, and the fact that the population of the Earth is already so freaking high, like the capacity of how many people the Earth can tolerate is already like exceeded or close to exceeding. So cornering them off to even smaller spaces would be even worse in terms of overpopulation. So, because there are tons of issues that come from shoving too many people in the same area.
Yes. Well, it's a combination of overpopulation and capitalism. You know what I mean? You put the two together, you got a big old problem. Who knows what I'm talking about here? It's a matter of carbon footprint, right? What's your carbon footprint? What's ours? How does it compare to people in, say, sub-Saharan Africa?
There's a calculator for it if you really want to know.
No, I have it here. I was going to give you all the link. There are plenty of them. But you understand my basic point? The basic point is we're living high on the hog here in America, right? And what does everybody else in the world want? They want what we have. So you put together the American model and 10 billion people, you got a problem. I mean, our emissions are already too much, while only, say, 1 billion people have an excessive carbon footprint. But if you're going to try and lift the living standards of everybody else, that's a recipe for disaster, right? Now, a couple of things. I know we're pressed for time. I'll do this in a couple of minutes. But I definitely think it's important touching on because this is his optimistic conclusion, and we really need to get this out there. What's his message for overpopulation? Why isn't he worried?
Didn't he go on like some kind of rant about how like I don't know if this is exactly what you're talking about, but there was one thing that just like stuck out to me and I was like, this is kind of weird. Yeah, the women are independent thing, like saying like, yeah, like women are like now women, a lot more women have access to going and searching out a higher education and getting an actual job instead of just being a housewife and just having kids for the hell of it. And it was just weird, like the way he phrased it, like being like, he said like well-prepared offspring, and I just thought that was really weird. like having like 2 kids as opposed to like a lot makes them well-prepared offspring. He could have just said like they're prepared to have children and they aren't doing it because they feel like it's necessary for survival. Yeah. K-baby versus R-babies. Yeah. This is kind of weird.
What does that mean, K-babies versus R-babies? Someone can explain that to me?
Yeah, like K-babies are like, K-babies are the ones that are like, they're in the environment where people can like make the conscious choice to have kids. Like if they want to make that commitment, they don't have to. And then R-babies is like, they feel like they have to because they need to like continue their bloodline. Like they feel the need, so they have a lot of kids, like reproducing like a small mammal just to have a lot of kids because maybe one of them will survive. I don't know.
Yeah, in case a couple die. It's funny. It's not funny, but a little bit.
Well, in the old days, people would have a mess of kids because a lot of them wouldn't live, quite frankly. But you were living subsistence farming and you needed the labor. You made your own laborers.
Yeah, and the thing is, not a lot of people are working on farms and don't need mass quantities of labor. And also, child slave labor isn't really something that's seen as a very good thing.
No.
So, and also like, there's a lot more people that are in like comfortable enough financial situations to where it isn't like they're comfortable enough to know that like they have access to like healthcare, and like it'll be less likely for their children to die, like that sort of thing.
Good. Right. So I just put it in the chat here. I mean, basically, and this is a well-known public health argument from public health circles, that when you have rising rates of women's employment and education, the birth rate goes down. In some cases, it falls precipitously. In countries that do not have high rates of education and employment, the birth rate stays stubbornly high. And here I have for you guys a graph. I'm going to share it. A graph of, boom, here you go. I just think this is really interesting to look at. You know, this is a graph of world population growth since 1750. So you see how it grows exponentially. But in the year 1800, there weren't even 1 billion people on Earth. Then in a century later, there's 1.6 billion. In the 1960s, there were 3 billion. And then we started growing 1 billion almost every decade. Okay, where are we today? We're just over 7.5 billion. Scientists believe that it's going to plateau around 11.2 billion in the year 2100, which is still a lot of people. I mean, that's this study, according to Wilson, I think he says it's between 9 and 12 billion. And then the red line here represents the annual growth rate of the world population. So, up until 1980, it was very high, and it's been on the decline ever since. So the hope is that we can achieve some kind of equilibrium, right? And when we achieve that kind of equilibrium, we may be putting less pressure on the environment. What about consumption, though? Because we're still going to have 10 billion people. How can we allow them to have a comfortable standard of living and lower consumption? What does he have to say about that? Tech advancements. Technology will save us. Exactly. I love technology. How will it save us, everybody? How is technology going to change consumption? How's technology going to make us consume less?
I don't know if this is exactly the answer you're going for, because to be perfectly honest with you, I do not remember what he said about that particular part. Oh, my grandfather's complaining right now. It's a case of like how do I put I'm trying to figure out how to put this in correct words. There's a lot of labor that comes from doing something like let's say farming or something. Like, a lot of people are needed to make farming, or to do farming. There's a lot of equipment that needs to be done.
You need to eat.
I'm in the middle of talking.
What you need to eat?
I'm in the middle of talking.
What were you saying with technology? How great it is?
Yeah. I keep getting interrupted.
Screw you, Edward Wilson. Go for it.
I guess. Yeah. But it's like without the use of technology, it's way harder to do a lot of things. And if there's more technology, then it's easier to do things, and there's less of a carbon footprint. I don't know. I've lost my train of thought completely.
Oh, sorry. Well, if your grandma wants to chime in, that's cool. But anybody else want to help him out? It can innovate farming. There's one thing for sure. Yeah. What else? Well, let me help you all here. This is what he says, page 191 in the middle. I do want to start wrapping this up. He says in the middle of 191, the footprint, that is a carbon footprint, will evolve not to claim more and more space, as you might at first suppose, but less. The reason lies in the evolution of the free market system and the way it is increasingly shaped by high technology. The products that win competition today, and will continue to do so indefinitely, are those that cost less to manufacture and advertise and need less frequent repair and replacement, and give highest performance with a minimum amount of energy. He thinks that the consumers are going to change and start favoring quality over quantity. He says a few lines down, almost all the competition in the free market, other than in military technology, raises the average quality of life. Teleconferencing, online purchase and trade, ebook personal libraries, access on the internet to all literature and scientific data. These are things you don't need, right? He's talking about a dematerialization of our life. Online diagnosis and medical practice, right? You don't need to even travel to the doctor anymore. Food production per hectare sharply raised by indoor vertical gardens with LED lighting, right? There are designs for skyscrapers in parts of Asia where they're going to grow their food now. Genetically engineered crops and microorganisms, long distance business conferences and social visits by life-sized images, and not least the best available education in the world, free online to anyone, anytime, anywhere. Wow. He's talking about COVID, right? We don't need to go places anymore. We don't need to travel. We don't need to own things. And the things that we do own, we will demand that they are better quality. The BNR, what do they stand for? These are the new sciences, the life sciences, biology, God damn it, here you go on 205, biology, nanotechnology, and robotics. This is the future. This is what's going to help us dematerialize. I'm going to call your attention to this passage here too, and I can see what, and then I want to see what you all think about it. On 205 at the top, he says, the explosive growth of digital technology by transforming every aspect of our lives and changing our self-perception has made the BNR industries the spearhead of the modern economy. Those three, biology, nanotechnology, robotics, have the potential either to favor biodiversity or to destroy it. I believe they will favor biodiversity by moving the economy away from fossil fuels to energy sources that are clean and sustainable, by radically improving agriculture with new crop species, so then we'll put less pressure on land and ways to grow them, and by reducing the need or even the desire for distant travel. Stop traveling. Okay? So, what do you all think of that future? How does that sound? Anybody share his optimism? Nobody's traveling right now. But it's true, during this epidemic, the greenhouse gas emissions have really declined. Right? There were reports that, like in India, they showed pictures of the sky over New Delhi, you know, at the height of the epidemic, when cars were not on the road. And for the first time in years, the sky was clear, you know. Anybody want to play devil's advocate and tell me how they think digital technology increases consumption? Amazon.
Yeah, that's the only one I can think of, like convenience culture.
Also, just like being fed ads all the time. If you have your media all around you at all times and they're just feeding you ads, then you're always going to want something.
It's true. There have been studies done that, you know, consumer culture, easy consumption has risen thanks to Amazon and online vendors, right? Because you can now buy with a click of a finger, and you know, and you can do it all alone, judgment-free, like, you know, whereas you go to a shop, maybe you feel judged for what you're buying, but if you're doing it behind the walls of your home alone, you can be like, whatever, you know. Apparently, Alexa, you guys know Alexa, right? That thing you can talk to, that device, their digital assistant. This has really also increased consumption, right? You're chatting with somebody, your kids or your spouse or a friend, and you're like, hey, you know, it's a great idea. I should have that thing. Amazon, buy that for me. Or Alexa, buy that for me, right? And there was a great story I read recently about this girl, 5-year-old girl in Texas. She was playing with her doll. She was playing with her dolls and chatting with Alexa as she was playing. And then she ordered a dollhouse, a $400 dollhouse. And then she said, you know what, Alexa, I want cookies too. And so she got a dollhouse and cookies. They came like the next day and the parents were like, what the hell? And they were left with the bill. It's digital technology has made this a lot easier to consume, to buy stuff at least. What about travel? Do you think that's something that we can?
Okay, I've thought about this. It makes no sense to have planes if we are on the same land, if we are on the same mass land. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it makes no sense to have planes. If we just had electric trains, it would reduce the emissions. It would just, everything would be better. So I was thinking about this literally just yesterday, how we should just have trains everywhere and make them super duper accessible. So yeah.
I like trains. I'm with you, Naima. Trains are great. And Elvis says they're sexy. Yes. There are great train cultures in this world, and the United States is not one of them. Oh my God. Amtrak is a freaking disaster. And it costs a ton, and the people are mean, and it's slow. But if you go to France and Germany and Japan, it's so much nicer. How about commute? You think the commute might start to diminish? Is this the way you're going to be doing your work, everybody? Like when you graduate, what do you think? Is this what your work is going to be like? Or what do you think of that?
There's a decent amount of people moving out of Manhattan. They're moving out to like Long Island, especially like by me, because they don't really need to commute into work anymore.
It's very interesting what's happening right now. My question was more like, how do you feel about this? Are you comfortable working this way? I mean, I don't know. You guys are a tough generation. You don't know anything else yet, like, you know, or I don't know, maybe I spoke too soon. I don't know. What do you think? You think you can grow comfortable working like this? You spent the whole semester working like this. I like it.
Awful work-life balance. You wake up, like you go on the computer, and then you stay on the computer and go back to bed. Awful work-life balance. It's really hard to find time to like exercise too.
Yeah. This has been one of the surprises, Elva, of the semester that we're learning as faculty at MICA, how the way this kind of schedule put pressure on students that, you know, we didn't really anticipate or know. A lot of people have, and I have noticed this in my own life, like I roll out of bed and get on the computer. It all melts together now, you know. Used to be I would drive into work and sit at my desk and then I'd start working. No longer, right? That's one thing digital technology does, it erodes boundaries. I've noticed that for a while, right? When I was chair of my department at MICA, I would be answering emails on the sideline of my son's soccer game. And I was like, this is so pathetic, you know. Digital technology, the trend, by the way, is that digital technology has not made us work less, it has made us work more. The average American work week has gone up in the last 2 decades, thanks to digital technology. And another thing that ecologists point out is that the more people work, the higher their carbon footprint is. I wonder if anybody knows why. Why does a busy work week lead to a higher carbon footprint?
Are you talking about like someone having to commute there, or like how it is now, just like all online?
That's an obvious part of it, but it's not the only part.
The resources used in maintaining the building that you work in.
Maybe like buying your lunch as well. Like if you're having to go to like a grocery store every day or something like that, and then you don't even eat half of your lunch, and it's like, I don't really want to take this home, and then you just like throw it out or something like that.
But even without the commute, I think you can argue that bigger work weeks still have a bigger carbon footprint.
I mean, there's the side of it where it's like, I mean, it doesn't happen quite as much now because everything's digital, but there's like printing out papers and making copies and all that, like the paper side of it. And if you're busy, then you have a lot more paperwork moving around.
You use up electricity.
You do. It's there's also something rather subtle going on. So ecologists find that, like, so in France, for example, the average work week is 35 hours. In the United States, it's about 50. And the French have a lower carbon footprint. What do they do with those extra hours in their week? They chill, you know, they're chilling. And chilling does not have a big carbon footprint. You know, they're not shopping. They're like chilling in a cafe, drinking some Cointreau and smoking a Gauloise, you know, or they're hanging out with their family and their kids or around the table. But there's something that, like Elva was talking about a second ago, like spending 10 to 12 hours at work, even no matter where you are, even if you're at home, behind a computer, in your office, you're not going anywhere, that may have a larger carbon footprint, because what else are you going to do with your time? You know, what Americans tend to do is shop. You need different types of diversion. The French have different types of diversion. Americans, unfortunately, we only have one type of diversion. That's shopping. We love to shop, right? And so there's a relation between being plugged in to your work week and your work life, and, you know, nonstop. And like, what else are you going to do? What else are you going to think on? You know, what else do people spend their time thinking about when they're trying to, yes, America is go, go, go. I think the larger point is time, is the issue that this lack of time that we have in America is very detrimental, right? We need to take time. People need to take time. America is such a competitive place. Your world is so competitive, right? Here at MICA, it's so competitive. You guys are all up against other great artists, you know, and I know that the tendency among MICA kids is to work so hard. But it's very important to try and find a balance between working hard. So, you know, there's a relation with my concision lecture. You should do grad school in France. I went to grad school in Belgium. It was very civilized and it was free. It's a different, the French have a different ethos, and the Italians as well. They have a different ethos. They have a different outlook, right? Work less, spend more time enjoying, but enjoy in ways that don't involve shopping and buying shit, right? But our culture is so amped up and so hard work all the time that when we play, we play very intensely and very expensively. Oh, and I wanted to tie this all back together to concision. Just as, you know, it's good for you to economize your writing, it's very good for you to try and economize your work life too, right? And what I mean by that is work efficiently. Do your work, do it well, do it hard, and then get outside and do other things. My biggest criticism of digital technology is how it is distracting. I sit there and I'm writing, or I'm doing work, or I'm preparing for class, and my phone is next to me, and people text me, or I'm worried about the election, I check on it. Those fucking cell phones, right? My daughter, 16-year-old daughter, I'm always yelling at her, get rid of your cell phone, do your work, right? She checks her phone, she does her work, checks phone, does her, and you know what that means? Her homework takes 6 hours at night. If you can, I know you can't, throw it away, right? Hide it, sum up. You know, if we can figure out ways to be more disciplined with this technology and be more efficient with our work style, then I think you can enjoy a better quality of life. But the other issue is really the American ideal. And the American ideal is to just be the best all the time, work like a dog, buy a lot of shit. And I don't know what that, you know, I mean, I think that's a foolhardy and vain goal, this workaholic culture of ours. What's wrong with unplugging and just being happy, you know? But anyway, we'll have a lot more time to raise this with Emma Maris, because I think that's definitely her vein. That's definitely her thrust. That's definitely her argument, right? And the issue of conservation is an issue that is not for biologists only. It's for all of us. And it's something we can all and each of us do every day in all parts of our life. So, well, I'm done ranting here. Okay, everybody? So I'm going to stick around and see if anybody wants to chat with me, but I will see you all next week. Your papers are due, and I'll see you at the appointed hour. We're going to be meeting with Chris Drolson from the library. And that's about it, okay? All right. Peace out, everyone. I'll stick around, okay? Bye. Hey, James, you want to talk?
Yeah, I did have one question about the personal narrative essay.
Yeah, go for it.
Since it's based on has to be based on like an experience.
Ideal.
About, or you said what?
Ideally, yeah.
Okay. And I was just like trying like so hard to think about like my experience with like the wild. I'm just like personally, I haven't really had too many encounters.
Have you ever seen a wild animal? Have you ever encountered a wild animal? How about if you watch a show about a wild animal, how you felt about it?
Yeah, I was just like, could it include like